I'm Megan, and at 42, I've at last discovered contentment in my life. Getting here wasn't easy, particularly after my husband, Tom, passed away from cancer 3 years ago. Even after 15 years of dating, there are still mornings when I find myself longing for his side of the bed. Tom left me everything, including our large suburban home and around $700,000 in investments and money. Even if it seems like a lot, I would give anything to get him back. I have, nevertheless, established a decent life for myself. I've come to love my own company while working as the HR manager for a tech company in the downtown area. In contrast, my parents believe that my life is meaningless. When Mom refers to it as wasting away, Dad nods in agreement. They don't understand why I haven't remarried after 45 years of marriage. Every time Mom remarks, "You're still young enough to find someone, at least once." You know, it's not too late to start a family. These days, there are choices. Every month, on a Sunday, I pay them a visit. I've grown to dread the 2-hour journey. The lectures start as soon as I enter their building. Mom will say something like, "Megan, I ran into Susan Williams at Bridge Club," with a tone of feigned casualness. Her son David is currently divorced. You know, he's an accountant. Mom fails to add that David Williams, who is 39 years old, has been living in his mother's basement and has been unemployed for the last 3 years. I am well aware of these friends' sons of Mom's. Instead of a woman, they want a meal ticket. The typical answer I give is, "Thanks, Mom, but I'm not interested in dating right now." The visit last Sunday began similarly to the others. I got there at midday, assisted Mom with lunch, and prepared myself for the anticipated interrogation on our relationship. This time, though, something was different. No other eligible bachelor, including David Williams, was mentioned. Instead, lunchtime was strangely quiet. "Is everything okay?" Finally, wary of the quiet, I inquired. Dad and Mom looked at each other. "Well," Mom explained, folding her napkin carefully, "we're worried about your brother." I took notice of that. I am 7 years older than Jake, who is 35. Jake, in contrast to me, had married Vanessa 3 years prior, following the conventional route. Vanessa was loved by my parents from the beginning. She was courteous, attractive, and most of all, she desired a large family. "What about Jake?" I inquired. "He lost his job," Dad said. "The company downsized, and he was one of the first to go. And now he and Vanessa can't afford their rent. They're going to be evicted at the end of the month." I nodded slowly, already sensing where this conversation was headed. "They need a place to stay," Mom added, her tone shifting from concern to demanding. "Just until Jake finds another job and they save enough for a new apartment." I sighed. "Jake's a bit chaotic, Mom. You know that. And I'm used to living alone." "He's your brother," Mom said sharply. "Family helps family. And Vanessa is such a lovely girl, she'll help around the house. They won't be any trouble." I doubted that. Jake had always been the golden child, but he was also impulsive and disorganized. Even as a kid, his room looked like a tornado had hit it. And while Vanessa seemed nice enough from our limited interactions at family gatherings, I didn't know her well. "How long would they need to stay?" I asked. "Just a few months," Mom insisted. 3 at most. "Jake has some promising leads already." I doubted that too. The pharmaceutical industry had been laying people off left and right. "Please, Megan." Mom reached across the table and grabbed my hand. "We'd take them in ourselves, but you know our place is too small." Their 2-bedroom condo was indeed too small for 4 adults, and my house did have plenty of space. After an hour of guilt trips and promises that Jake and Vanessa would be perfect house guests, I reluctantly agreed. "Fine. They can stay with me temporarily, but we need to set some ground rules." Mom's face lit up with relief. "Oh, thank you, sweetheart. Jake will be so grateful. I'll call him right now." As Mom rushed to the phone, Dad patted my shoulder. "That's my girl. Jake's lucky to have a sister like you." I smiled weakly, already regretting my decision. But how bad could it be? A few months with my brother and his wife. I could handle that, right? A week later, Jake and Vanessa arrived at my doorstep with 4 suitcases and hopeful smiles. Sis. Jake hugged me tight, his familiar cologne bringing back childhood memories. Thank you so much for this. We promise we won't be a burden. Vanessa hung back slightly, her blonde hair pulled into a neat ponytail. We can't thank you enough, Megan. This means the world to us. She seemed genuinely grateful, her voice soft and sincere. I showed them to the guest bedroom on the first floor. Make yourselves at home, I said, handing Jake a set of keys. I've cleared some space in the kitchen cabinets for your stuff. This is so generous of you, Vanessa said, looking around. I'd love to help out while we're here. I can cook and clean, it's the least I can do. That would be great, I said, feeling slightly relieved. Maybe this arrangement would work out after all. I usually get home around 6 and I'm not much of a cook. Don't worry about a thing, Vanessa smiled. I'll take care of dinner every night. We worked out a simple arrangement. I would buy groceries for all of us, and they would handle cooking and cleaning until they found jobs. I also asked them to be mindful of utilities. Tom and I had installed smart thermostats and LED lighting throughout the house to keep bills reasonable, and I wanted to keep it that way. The first few weeks were surprisingly pleasant. I'd come home to delicious home-cooked meals, Vanessa was an excellent cook, and a clean house. Jake spent his days job hunting, and Vanessa kept everything running smoothly. I even started to enjoy having company around after years of living alone. About a month into our living arrangement, I noticed things starting to change. The hot dinners waiting for me when I got home became less frequent. The house wasn't as tidy as before. One Tuesday, I came home to find the kitchen untouched since breakfast, dishes still in the sink. I made myself a sandwich and sat down to eat alone. Around 7:30, Jake and Vanessa finally came home. Oh, you already ate, Vanessa said, barely glancing at me as she dropped her shopping bags on the counter. Yeah, I figured you guys were busy, I replied, trying to keep my tone neutral. Everything okay? Jake opened the fridge and grabbed a beer. Just running some errands. I noticed Vanessa's bags were from high-end stores I couldn't afford to shop at regularly, even with my comfortable salary. I wondered how they were affording shopping sprees when they couldn't pay rent. The next evening was similar, no dinner prepared and the house a mess. When they finally showed up, I decided to ask directly. I thought we had an agreement about dinner and keeping the place clean, I said as I microwaved leftovers. Vanessa sighed dramatically. I've been super busy lately. I'm starting a business with some friends. We've been meeting here during the day to plan everything. Here? You've been having people over to my house. I felt a flash of annoyance? It's just a few friends, Vanessa shrugged. We needed somewhere to meet. I put down my fork. Vanessa, this is my house. I don't know these people. I'm not comfortable with strangers being here when I'm not home. They're not strangers, they're my friends, she snapped. They're strangers to me, I countered. If you want to meet with them, you should go to a coffee shop or one of their houses. Vanessa stared at me for a moment, then threw her fork onto her plate with a clatter. She pushed back from the table and stormed off to their bedroom. Jake glared at me. Way to go, sis. She's trying to build something here. Jake, I'm not trying to be difficult, but he didn't wait for me to finish. He just got up and followed his wife. After that night, the atmosphere in the house changed completely. Vanessa stopped acknowledging me altogether. No, good morning. No, how was your day? Nothing. She also stopped cooking for me entirely. I'd come home to find evidence that they'd eaten takeout containers or dirty pans, but nothing left for me. I went back to preparing my own meals, just as I had before they moved in. 2 months into their stay, I was beginning to feel like a stranger in my own home. One evening, I found them sprawled on my living room couch, watching TV and sharing a large pizza. They didn't offer me any. I decided it was time for another conversation. Hey guys, quick question. How's the job hunt going? Jake barely looked away from the TV. Oh, making progress. What does that mean? I pressed. He shrugged. I've had a few interviews. Nothing solid yet. Vanessa didn't even pretend to acknowledge me. It's been 2 months. I reminded them. When you moved in, we talked about this being temporary. We'll let you know when we have news, Jake said dismissively, turning back to the TV. The following Sunday, I drove to my parents' house for our monthly visit. Jake and Vanessa had declined to join me. I was actually relieved. I needed to talk to my parents alone. When I arrived, Mom hugged me tightly. How's everything going with Jake and Vanessa? That's what I wanted to talk to you about, I started. Before I could continue, Mom launched into her concerns. Jake says you've been pressuring them about finding jobs. He says you treat them like they're taking advantage of you. I was stunned. What? I barely mentioned it. I just asked how the search was going. He says you're making them feel unwelcome, Dad added. That's not like you, Megan. They promised to help around the house, and Vanessa stopped doing that weeks ago, I explained. And she's been inviting people over without asking me. Mom shook her head. They're going through a difficult time, Megan. You need to be more understanding. Understanding? They're living in my house rent-free, and I'm buying all their food. I could feel my frustration building. They're family, Dad said firmly. Family supports each other. I realized there was no point arguing. My parents had already decided I was in the wrong. I changed the subject, and we had an uncomfortable dinner before I headed home. As I pulled into my driveway, I noticed an unfamiliar car parked in my spot. Confused, I parked on the street and went inside. The moment I opened the door, I saw several large suitcases in the hallway. Voices came from the living room, more than just Jake and Vanessa's. I walked in to find an older couple sitting on my couch. I recognized them as Vanessa's parents, Robert and Linda, though we'd only met a few times at family gatherings. Everyone fell silent when I entered. Megan, Jake said with forced enthusiasm. Look who's visiting. I pasted on a smile. Hello, Robert. Linda, nice to see you. Linda nodded stiffly. Megan, Jake, can I talk to you for a minute? I kept my voice pleasant, though inside I was seething. Jake followed me upstairs to my home office. What's going on? I asked once the door was closed. Why are Vanessa's parents here with suitcases? Jake ran a hand through his hair nervously. They're just visiting for a week. They're on their way to Arizona to see Vanessa's brother. And you didn't think to ask me before inviting them to stay in my house? I could hear my voice rising. Please, Megan, Jake begged. It's just for a week. They'll be gone before you know it. I took a deep breath. This is exactly what I was talking about, Jake. This is my house. You can't just invite people to stay here without asking me. I know. I'm sorry, he said. But they're already here. What do you want me to do? Send them to a hotel? I stared at Jake's pleading face and felt myself caving again. Fine. 1 week. But that's it? Jake's face lit up. Thanks, sis. You're the best. As we went back downstairs, I noticed Vanessa had made dinner. Suddenly, she was being helpful again, now that her parents were here. We all sat down for dinner, and I tried to be polite despite my irritation. So Megan, Linda, Vanessa's mother, began, "This is quite a lovely home. How many bedrooms did you say it has?" 4, I replied between bites. And you live here all alone? Robert, her father, asked. Yes. Tom left me everything when he passed. I didn't like discussing my finances with people I barely knew. Such a large house for just one person, Linda remarked. How do you manage the upkeep? I manage fine, I said shortly. Linda exchanged a look with Robert. You know, if I had a house this size, I'd probably sell it. Too much space for one person, and the money could help other family members. I nearly choked on my water. Excuse me. I mean, you could sell this place, give half to your brother so he and Vanessa could buy their own home, and you could get something more appropriate for your situation. The audacity left me speechless for a moment. Jake looked uncomfortable, staring at his plate. When you have a house like this of your own, I finally said to Linda, keeping my voice level, you're welcome to sell it and give the money to your children. This is my home, and I have no plans to sell it. An awkward silence fell over the table. Linda pursed her lips, and Vanessa shot me a venomous look. We finished dinner with minimal conversation. The next week was excruciating. Every time I entered a room, conversation stopped abruptly. Linda and Robert asked invasive questions about my finances, my job, and my personal life. They treated my home like a hotel, leaving wet towels on the bathroom floor and dishes in the sink. I counted down the days until they would leave. Friday couldn't come fast enough. When Friday finally arrived, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders as I drove home from work. Soon, it would be just me, Jake, and Vanessa again, which was still not ideal, but better than having Vanessa's parents there too. As I turned onto my street, I rehearsed what I would say to Jake. It was time for a serious conversation about their job search and moving out timeline. 3 months had passed, and they showed no signs of leaving. I pulled into my driveway and walked to my front door. When I opened it, I froze. Several of my suitcases were sitting in the hallway. Confused, I opened one. Inside were my clothes hastily folded and crammed in. My toiletries were stuffed in a side pocket. I heard voices from the living room and walked in, my heart pounding. Jake, Vanessa, and her parents were huddled together, looking at what appeared to be a guest list. "What's going on?" I said loudly. "Why are my things packed?" They exchanged glances. No one spoke for a moment. Finally, Vanessa shrugged. "We're planning my parents' 35th anniversary party. Their relatives are coming here tomorrow." "Here?" "In my house." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "It's just for the weekend," Jake said weakly. "And where am I supposed to go?" I demanded. "We thought you could stay at a hotel," Vanessa said casually, "or with your parents. We need the space for the guests." I stared at them, dumbfounded. They had packed my belongings and planned to kick me out of my own house for a party I hadn't even been told about. "This is my house," I said slowly, my voice shaking with anger. "You don't get to decide who stays here or who leaves. If anyone's going to a hotel, it's your relatives." "Don't be ridiculous," Linda scoffed. "We can't ask family to stay at a hotel. But you can ask me to leave my own home?" I was incredulous. "It's just for one weekend," Vanessa said dismissively. "Don't be so selfish." "Selfish?" I nearly shouted the word. "I've let you live here rent-free for 3 months. I bought your groceries, paid all the utilities, and put up with your complete lack of respect for my home and privacy." "You're being dramatic," Vanessa rolled her eyes. "I want your parents out of my house by tomorrow," I said firmly. "And there will be no party here." Linda gasped. "You can't do that. We've already invited everyone." "Watch me," I said coldly. I turned to Jake. "I expected better from you." Jake at least had the decency to look ashamed, but he said nothing in my defense. I went upstairs to my bedroom, slammed the door, and called my mother. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely dial. "Mom," I said when she answered, "Jake and Vanessa are trying to throw me out of my own house for the weekend so Vanessa's parents can have an anniversary party here." There was a pause. "Jake mentioned something about a small gathering," she said carefully. "You knew about this?" I couldn't believe it. "Well, yes. It seemed reasonable to me. It's just for one weekend, Megan." I felt like I'd been slapped. "It's my house, Mom. They didn't even ask me." "Family helps family," she repeated her familiar refrain. "Why don't you stay with us for the weekend? It would give you a break from all the tension." In that moment, I realized my parents were complicit in this whole situation. They had known all along and approved of Jake and Vanessa's behavior. "I have to go," I said and hung up. I sat on my bed, trying to process what was happening. My own family was trying to take over my home, and my parents were supporting them. I felt betrayed and angry, but mostly, I felt determined. I woke up early Saturday morning with a clear head and a plan. I listened carefully and heard nothing. The house was silent. I checked my phone. 7:15 a.m. perfect. I peeked out my bedroom door. The hallway was empty. I tiptoed downstairs and confirmed what I'd hoped. Jake, Vanessa, and her parents had gone shopping for party supplies. This was my chance. Last night, after our confrontation, I'd pretended to give in. I went downstairs, put on a fake smile, and told them they were right. I was being selfish. I should let them have their party. My mother had called back, and I told her I'd be staying with them for the weekend after all. Jake looked relieved. Vanessa seemed smug, and her parents were triumphant. They believed they'd won. Little did they know. As soon as they left this morning, I sprang into action. I called a 24-hour locksmith I'd found online last night. He promised to be at my house within the hour. While I waited, I gathered all of Jake and Vanessa's belongings, their clothes, toiletries, shoes, everything. I did the same with Linda and Robert's things. I packed them all neatly into their suitcases and duffel bags. The locksmith arrived at 8:30 a.m. By 10 a.m., every lock in my house had been changed. I paid Mike, thanked him profusely, and dragged all the suitcases outside onto the front lawn. Then I sat in my living room with a cup of tea and waited. Around noon, a car pulled into my driveway. Jake, Vanessa, and her parents got out, arms full of grocery bags and party decorations. They saw the suitcases immediately. Confusion crossed their faces as they approached the front door. I heard Jake's key in the lock, followed by the sound of him jiggling it when it didn't work. Then came the knocking. "Megan, the key isn't working," Jake called through the door. I walked to the door but didn't open it. That's because I changed the locks. There was a stunned silence. Then Vanessa's voice. "What?" "Open the door right now." "No," I said firmly. "I want all of you off my property. You can't do this." Linda shrieked. "Our party is tonight. People are coming." "You should have thought about that before trying to throw me out of my own house," I replied calmly. Jake's voice turned pleading. "Megan, come on. We can talk about this." "There's nothing to talk about. You've taken advantage of my generosity for months. You've disrespected me in my own home, and now you've tried to force me out so you can throw a party I never approved of. We're done talking." Vanessa started pounding on the door. "You can't do this. Let us in right now, or I'll call the police." "Go ahead," I said. "I'll explain how you've been squatting in my home and refusing to leave when asked." "I'm sure they'll be very interested." Jake tried a different approach. "Sis, please. Where are we supposed to go? That's not my problem anymore. You've had 3 months to figure it out. Time's up." Linda was wailing now about her ruined anniversary. Robert was trying to calm her down. Vanessa had moved from pounding on the door to kicking it. "If you damage my property, I will call the police," I warned her. The kicking stopped. "Mom and Dad are going to hear about this," Jake threatened. "I'm sure they will," I replied. "Now please leave before I call the authorities." There was more arguing, pleading, and threatening, but I stood firm. Eventually, I heard them loading their suitcases into their cars. I watched through the window as they drove away, Jake and Vanessa in one car, Linda and Robert in another. As predicted, my phone started ringing almost immediately. My mother's name flashed on the screen. I declined the call. Then came a barrage of text messages. "Mom, what have you done? Jake says you threw them out." "Dad, call us immediately, young lady." For the first time in months, I sat in the stillness of my house, shut off my phone, and brewed myself another cup of tea. Over the next few days, the texts continued to arrive. My parents never stopped texting and calling. They became more and more irate in their texts, accusing me of being callous, self-centered, and cruel. In a lengthy text message, Jake announced that he was permanently severing our relationship. None of them received a response from me. I eventually switched my phone back on permanently after a week. It was now a trickle of communications. My cousin Emily informed me that Jake and Vanessa had taken up residence with my parents. It seems that when my parents had to deal with Jake and Vanessa's entitled conduct directly, their attitude immediately shifted. Emily informed me that my parents had threatened to force Jake and Vanessa to leave unless they found employment within 2 months and saved enough money for a place of their own. I was unable to resist grinning at the irony. A month has passed since I had my hair done. To be honest, I don't mind that my parents still don't talk to me. The quiet has been restorative. I will no longer be lectured about my life decisions. Stop pressuring me to date men I don't want to date. Don't feel guilty about not having kids anymore. I've found my home's tranquility again. I've taken back my boundaries and my space. I may be accused of selfishness for not allowing my family to dominate me. However, I refer to it as self-respect. Maybe we'll get back together eventually. It's possible that my parents will come to the realization that their golden kid isn't really so golden. Perhaps instead of demanding assistance, Jake will mature and take charge of his own life. Perhaps Vanessa will come to understand that family is not a resource to be used for personal gain. Or perhaps not. In any case, I'm tired of being the doormat for the family. I repainted the guest bedroom last weekend in a cheery yellow that always makes me happy. After Jake and Vanessa moved in, I stopped throwing dinner parties for my friends, but now I do it again. I'm leading my life as I see fit. Even while it's not the life my parents had in mind for me, just me and my 2 large houses, without a partner or kids, it's my life. And I'm proud of myself for finally defending myself and establishing limits that not even my family could breach.